Welcome to the PowerSpeakingPro channel. This is where I give you tips to help you improve your speaking and communication skills. My name is George Murnat and glad to have you aboard. This video is about talking in a hostile situation, such as the one Mike Bloomberg faced in the Democratic debate in Las Vegas, Nevada on February 19, 2020. When going into a hostile situation, it is necessary to know the environment of that situation. Should you bring a knife? Should you bring a gun? Or should you bring a bazooka? It is necessary to do your homework, and that includes understanding your strengths, your weaknesses, that is, those areas which you are likely to be attacked, and the weaknesses of your opponent. Doing your homework will give you the ability to fire in what's called an incoming to your opponent. And when you have the ability to maintain the floor for as long as possible, you have the advantage. That way you have the ability to attack your opponent, and they don't have the ability at that time to attack you. Think of this as a football game. When your team has the football, the other team can't score. But when the other team has a football, they can score against you. The important thing is to remember, when you have the ball, make sure you don't throw an interception. Also, understand who the true audience is. Is the audience really the people at the venue? The answer is not really, because there are only a few thousand people at most in the venue, but there may be as many as 20 million people watching. So forget about what happens in the venue, but focus on the people who are actually watching on the television. Bloomberg's answers weren't very sharp because he hadn't done his homework. When the question arose, why are you the person to beat Donald Trump? Bloomberg didn't have the best answers.
I don't think there's any chance of the senator beating President Trump. You don't start out by saying, I've got 160 million people, I'm going to take away the insurance plan that they love.
He should have said, Bernie will take away private medical insurance from millions and millions of Americans. Bernie is willing to destroy the economic system which has produced the greatest wealth in the history of the world. And Bernie does not represent the views of most Americans. I agree Bernie may get about 30% of the vote in the primaries, but that leaves about 70% of the Americans which disagree with Bernie. And you don't win a presidential election while leaving out 70% of the American voters. First concept to remember is, don't answer a question the way it was asked. The person asking the question has set up the situation. What your job is to do is to take that question, pivot, and answer the question the way that you would actually like to answer the question.
I'd like to talk about who we're running against. A billionaire who calls women fat broads and horse-faced lesbians. And no, I'm not talking about Donald Trump. I'm talking about Mayor Bloomberg.
When Elizabeth Warren attacked Bloomberg about his inappropriate sexual comments to women, he should have said, we all say something that we regret in the past. Then he should have quickly pivoted and said, Elizabeth, you lied about your Native American heritage. Elizabeth, you lied about being fired because you were pregnant. Elizabeth, you lied about accepting money from political action committees or PACs. Elizabeth, how many other lies have you told the American people? That recognizes Elizabeth's question at the beginning, but it totally turns around the situation to make her answer embarrassing questions. Bloomberg also made the mistake of getting into some details. When he mentioned the article about supporting Obamacare, he wasted a few seconds and showed insecurity when he was quoting the exact source of where he had published his article. Stay away from those types of things because the viewers don't know and it makes you look uncertain and unprepared.
And I think at that time I wrote an article praising Obamacare. It was either in the New York Post or the Daily News.
As this debate was not well managed by the moderators, it was up to Mike to grab more floor time, the way Bernie and Elizabeth just did it by yelling out. Mike needs to be more aggressive in that aspect. He did have a good line when he said, "Would you let me finish, thank you?" There he showed assertiveness, and he needed to show this many more times in the debate, because Bloomberg's time in the debate was far less than any of the other candidates.
It was there. Let me finish, thank you.
Bloomberg knew that he would get hammered on his quote-unquote stop and frisk policy. A good way to answer that is, he implemented the policy based on the information that he knew at the time, and it was working. But as he learned and more information became available, he realized it was necessary to change that policy. I think he made a mistake by totally admitting that he was wrong about the policy. Again, say, I implemented the policy because that's what most of the police departments were doing at the time. But then as we got more experience, we realized that there was probably a better method to policing in New York City, and we needed to change our method.
Well, if I go back and look at my time in office, the one thing that I'm really worried about, embarrassed about, was how it turned out with stop and frisk.
On the question of releasing his taxes, Bloomberg was apparently willing to release the taxes. When that question came up, he should have said, yes, I will release my taxes when they are available. And that should have been it. He shouldn't have gotten into any of the details. When the question came up, will you release them before Super Tuesday, his answer could have been, my taxes are over 3,000 pages and my accountants are working on that as fast as possible, and then I will release them immediately. Again, don't get into the details because that allows your opponents to begin to attack you more.
We will put out this one. It tells everybody everything they need to know about every investments that I make.
On the question of the non-disclosure agreements, again, Bloomberg got into the weeds. What he should have said to Elizabeth Warren is, when I make a contract, I abide by the terms of the contract. I expect the other parties to do that too. And Elizabeth, I would certainly expect you to abide by the terms of your contract. Then he could have pivoted to some other subject, but instead he played defense while Elizabeth just constantly attacked him. When in that type of situation, it's important to immediately move off that subject and attack your adversary. Our American economy is based on people who start businesses. And at that time, Bloomberg was the only one who started a business. So he should have turned to all the other opponents and said, I believe I'm the only one who started a business. That was a rhetorical question, but Bloomberg should have stayed at that point and actually stared down the rest of the audience. If you notice, Bloomberg issued an edited commercial with exactly that point, where all the other opponents were looking at their shoelaces because they knew he was right. Use pauses as your friend. When you use pauses, the other people look a little bit embarrassed because they couldn't answer that question. Did you start a business yourself? Then Bloomberg should have talked about all the advantages of his business and the advantages that they provide the American economy and the workers.
Talk about businesses. I'm the only one here that I think that's ever started a business. Is that fair?
Bloomberg knew that the question of his wealth would come up, and he didn't have a great answer.
I can't speak for all billionaires. All I know is I've been very lucky, made a lot of money, and I'm giving it all away to make this country better. And a good chunk of it goes to the Democratic Party as well.
Is it too much? Have you earned too much money? Has it been an obscene amount of money? Should you have earned that much money?
Yes, I worked very hard for it, and I'm giving it away.
Bloomberg's better line was when he turned towards Sanders and he said, "What am I missing? The socialist in this debate is a multimillionaire and has 3 houses." He should have banged that point home on Bernie to show the hypocrisy of Bernie's philosophy.
What a wonderful country we have. The best-known socialist in the country happens to be a millionaire with 3 houses. What I miss here?
Please leave any comments below, and I'll see you the next time.